Do you want to have your picture bigger?
And we're live. Hi there. I think we have about 9 or 10 people on the call right now. We're going to take a couple of minutes just to let people kind of settle in. There is a Q&A channel that if you see on like the top right of your screen, that'll be the place where you can put any questions you might have. And if you're interested in having our team connect with you on LinkedIn, please put your LinkedIn URL in there and I'll share it with our recruiting team, and John as well, our president and founder, will be hopping on in a couple moments. So I'm just going to give people some time to settle in and I'll repeat the instructions again in a minute. Hi there, I see we have a couple new people joining. We are going to get started in just a few minutes and I'll introduce our president and founder of ProFocus, John Boone. He is going to be leading the presentation today and giving you some really key insights on his experience in the tech industry and job hunting, and overall a really great strategy that he's developed. I said this a little bit earlier, but on the top right side, there's a Q&A section. I see that somebody's already put one in there, so that's great. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in there. I'll read them through and be asking John throughout the presentation. And then if we have time at the end, we'll go over additional questions that we might have missed. If you're interested in having our team at ProFocus connect with you on LinkedIn, please share your LinkedIn URL in the Q&A as well. I won't publish that for all of the attendees to see, but it's a great way for us to help build your network and hopefully maybe be in touch through opportunities that we have available at ProFocus. So we're about 12:03. We've got quite a few people. I think I'm going to go ahead and introduce John. And 1 second. Hey, John, I think that you're muted right now.
Thank you. Hi, I'm John Boone. I'm the president and founder of ProFocus Technology, and we're just really glad to be doing this seminar for everybody. We put together a 3-part series in job hunting as a result of all of the disruption in the economy due to COVID. And we just really wanted to help people. There's been a lot of people who have been put out of work by this. And then we've also got some college students as well who are graduating and people looking for internships and things like that. And so we just wanted to really help out the community as well, much as we could. So we put together this job hunting series. And the first one was on resumes, and the second one was on general job hunting strategies and techniques and things. And this one is really about the best job hunting strategy. So this is a really exciting one. It's near and dear to my heart, and I'm really looking forward to sharing this with you guys. I think that. Let's see here. I think we should go on since it's 12:04, and So just a heads up that we are recording this, so it's be available as a recording afterwards. As Maddie mentioned, go ahead and if you'd like ProFocus team member to reach out to you about maybe job opportunities and things, you put your LinkedIn URL in the Q&A, as well. You don't need to mute, and you can also put in the answers in Q&A, and we're going to be essentially processing those questions as we go along through the presentation. If they're applicable to what we're talking about, we'll try to, and we'll try to get to them at the end as well. And then any questions we don't get to, we will answer, afterwards in writing as well. So I have I'm very deep into tech employment, and I know a lot about tech jobs and hiring managers and what they're looking for and all the different companies in town, and what I know a lot about tech job hunting. Basically, I've been working with hiring managers since 1988 in staffing, so I'm always typically talking to managers about what they're looking for, what do they want in candidates, how are they hiring, how are they finding people. I just every single day living in this, so I really have a lot of experience that I'd be more than happy to share with you guys. I'm also a sales and marketing professional, really kind of at heart, and so that's important in job hunting, because you're really marketing yourself and you're selling yourself. And so that's really at the core of job hunting. So I'll be able to share that with you guys. I know you guys are a bunch of techies and so forth. So helping you with this is probably something that would be valuable for you. Sorry,
Hey, John. I'm just going to do a quick test. I see that someone says that they don't have any sound. If any other attendees can't hear us, can you please say that in the comments?
I forgot why my screen is white right now. That's not good. Let me try this again.
I'm assuming most people can hear me because they have been putting their LinkedIn URLs in here and asking questions. So I think once you're ready, John, we can go ahead and move forward. I just wanted to make sure that everyone can hear us.
I've got a present live button available, but not just start slides, just start slideshow. I'm going to refresh this whole thing. Sorry, folks.
When tech people have technical difficulties. I can hear fine. Okay.
You guys can see the progress here. I'm going to answer a question. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay. Let's try this again. Sorry, everybody. Still populating here, just a sec.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like everyone can hear us fine so far.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks,
so I'll make this into a slideshow as soon as my system allows me to here, but it won't let me click on that. But in ProFocus, we do, just so you guys know, that we do technology staffing and consulting, and we're headquartered here in Portland, Oregon. We help our clients with contract to hire, and direct hire services. We help our consultants find jobs through those avenues. When we work with candidates, we really work hard to learn what people are really looking for and what their goals are, and what kind of career path they're looking for, and so forth. And then we just really make careful introductions with our clients. So we learn the career goals of our consultants. We include people in our job radar program, so we kind of watch out for jobs that are good for you, even if you've already got a job and you want us to do that. We can introduce candidates to managers. We set up interviews, and we prepare people for interviews and coach them. We work on getting people higher pay, and then we support people in their new jobs as well to make sure that things get going well. And then we help people over time as well. Just wanted to let you guys know kind of what we do in case you were interested. This is a little bit outline for our presentation today. So there's the randomness of the typical job search, which I'm going to talk about, which is interesting. And we're going to talk about this method that I would highly recommend that everyone use. And then we'll talk about common mistakes that people make, and then give you guys some resources as well. So what's really, really interesting to me is just how random the typical job hunt is. So people will, go to look for a job, and they will, search online, and they will, find, it's like whatever companies happen to be advertising jobs at that time, and then they apply, and then then they might randomly get, essentially there's this random thing where there's this real problem with job postings and so forth, where resumes get lost in job posting systems and so forth. And then so you randomly get get someone like an HR person or something to look at your resume, and they essentially randomly think you're good or not for it because they may not understand the technologies and so forth. Then you end up getting an interview, and then there's just randomness all throughout the process, and that's okay. But it's people do find jobs that way, and they are happy in their careers and so forth. But I do think that there is a better way, and that you can choose your career, you can choose your next company, and you can choose your next job there. And so this presentation is going to teach you a job hunting technique that really takes out all that randomness and really allows you to land at your dream job, at the dream company that you want to have. And I have some experience with this. I'll tell you where I learned this method. I was in college. This would have been 1989. And I went to the career fair to hear just a job hunting seminar. And there was a woman that just laid out this strategy, just like I'm going to do with you. And I didn't know any better. And so I just followed the strategy. And at the time, I had been, had a job, a part-time job during college, as a marketing, doing marketing at a tech company, and I was, and so I really wanted to go into high tech. I wanted to go to high tech. I wanted to go to Silicon Valley and work at a computer company, and I wanted to be in marketing. And so I applied this method that we're going to talk about, and sure enough, I did land an assistant marketing manager job at Everex Systems, which was a PC manufacturer, really hot PC manufacturer back then, and we had the fastest PCs in the world. And so I landed my dream job. I got that assistant marketing manager job, and it was just really, really, really amazing. And it's just exactly following this process is how I did it. So I'm going to share it with you. So I might be able to start the slideshow now, make these slides bigger. There we go. Oh, started at the beginning. That's nice. Let's see here. Catch up here, sorry. Come on, computer. So it's funny that what in college, I got a personal computer. I had a IBM PC Junior, and so it's funny because that computer, I thought I was a computer guy, and my qualifications were that I had a computer. So that's what got me started in my tech career. So this is the overview of the method. So the first thing you want to do is determine the position titles that you're seeking. You want to make sure you know exactly what you're looking for. So and then you want to research companies that you want to work for, that you're choosing these companies as that you like them for various reasons. Then you're going to want to research the names of the managers at those companies. And then you're going to want to reach out to those managers in various ways, which I'll talk with you about. And then you're going to want to follow up with those people over time. And then if you do that, you will land a job at one of those companies with one of those managers, almost certainly. So the first thing is to determine the position title that you want. And for some of us, that's easy. You know, we know probably what that is. And for others, it's not exactly so easy. But it's a very important step to identify those titles. You may think you know the title, whereas if you research it, you may be able to find that there's other titles or better titles as well. And so when I was in college, you know, I knew I wanted to go into marketing. So what I did was I researched what are the entry-level job titles for marketing professionals. And I found out that it was assistant marketing manager and assistant product manager. So those were the entry-level job titles. So that was what my targets were. And so put quite a bit of research into this. You know, you may be like a DevOps professional, and there can be various titles that that can apply to. And you may, so research the titles because it's important. You're going to need to know what you're looking for, and you're going to want to be able to tell that to others as well. So if you want to be able to, it doesn't have to be one title, you know, it could be a list of say 3 titles. But when you talk with people and you're reaching out to people and so forth, you're going to need that list. So for example, when I was graduating from college, I was able to, you know, reach out to people and say, you know, hi, you know, my name's John Boone, and I'm looking for an assistant marketing manager or assistant product marketing manager role. I'm just graduating from college, and you know, I was wondering, you know, and we'll talk about the methodology, but you need to know this first, what you're looking for. I think we've covered this slide here. Does anyone have any questions on this step?
Hi, John. Yeah, there's a couple of questions related to position titles. One of them was referring to our last session where we mentioned kind of dumbing down titles in your CV if needed. How far can you go, and how do you sync that with LinkedIn, which is more static?
Mm-hmm. Yes, this goes back to, I think, the resume, the resume series, and we had talked about if you have a confusing job title on your resume, you may want to essentially change it to be more generic job title, and so that you might have a really weird, you know, title, whereas you really were a business systems analyst, but it's a really strange title, and then that I recommended that you go ahead and put business systems analyst as the job title on your resume. And if you are feeling concerned about that and so forth, you can also reference it down like in the bullets of the job bullets for that job. You could say something like, my official title was this, you know, and just kind of do a little explanation if you want to make sure that, you know, you're honest and everything. So, if it's really easy enough job title to just change, go ahead and do it. If you're concerned about it, you can put a little explanation down. But how far should you go? And you should just go. You just want to make it as understandable for your reader as you can.
Along the lines with that question as well, there are a couple people that are looking for a job title that closes the gap between marketing, sales, and customer success in business to business. This person's heard of marketing, sort of a connection between sales and operations to marketing operations. It's broadly UX, but they've noticed that the job titles in like search portals don't necessarily align with that. Do you have any advice for how you can bridge those?
Yeah, that's a good one. You have to put some thought into that. I would just recommend that you research. You mentioned you were looking at job titles that, you know, online, and they seemed confusing. I would start maybe writing a list of those down and getting them organized and try to group them together. I don't have the exact answer for that right off the top of my head. So I would just say that, you know, this process is take time, research, and really try to identify the job titles. You could call, for example, VPs of sales at software companies and VPs of marketing at software companies and ask them this question as well. So that would be a good way as well to research it.
Awesome. And then one more question about the position titles. What if position titles are so new that they don't match the keyword or job portal searches?
Yeah, so again, this would be kind of like that research project. Sorry to come back to that, but you would research like what the job titles, since it's so new that no one's using it, for example, you would research the job titles that are in use or that have been recently in use, and you would uh, just do your best to understand and make a study of the job title issue, and then come together yourself with a list. Your list might be something like, I'm a, site reliability engineer, and the other titles, that people look for, that people seem to have open, or that I would be good for, would be DevOps, and things like that. So just research it and try to come up with a cohesive description of the position that you're looking for, and it might be complicated, and like you mentioned in this case.
Thanks, John. I think that's it for now.
Yeah, great. Okay, so you know what job titles you're targeting, a couple of job titles that you're targeting, and so the next step is to research companies that you would like to work for. This is kind of fun, and so people say, "Gosh, where do I start?" And so your objective here is to build a fairly large list, and you need to have like 50, we're talking like 50 to 100 companies on your list, and so you're just going to start researching. You can start by saying, well, where do I want to live? Maybe is a question. My answer when I was searching in college was I want to live in Silicon Valley. You may want to, let's just assume you want to stay in Portland. You can say, let me see, what are my interests? I love biking. Are there any bike manufacturing companies in Portland? And so you'd search for that, research that, find if there was one, and then you'd add that company to your list. Let's say, oh, I really love camping gear. Then you'd research that. Are there any camping gear companies in Portland? Find those, add them to your list. You might add, if those are your interests, you might like Columbia Sportswear and Nike also. You put those on as a sporting goods, sporting apparel companies. And then you go on and you say, well, I really also, love, helping, poor people. And you say, well, who helps poor people? And then so you could research that, find the organizations in Portland that help poor people, and you could then research in, and you could continue and research a little bit further as well. So, it's not just the name of the company. You might want to look at it further and say, look at their website, see if you like what they're saying, and what maybe there's a company values on there, and you might add them into your list because of that, or you might eliminate them from what your research finds. So this is a big research project. It's going to take you quite a bit of time to go through and make yourself a really good list of target companies. So think of companies you have experience in, or industries you have experience in, companies you admire, maybe something right near your home. You could ride your bike or walk to work. A good way to find target companies is to research out the companies that are using the technologies that you have experience in. So a good way to do that, by the way, is that you search for, like, let's say you can search for other job titles. Like, let's say you're not a software engineer, but you can search for software engineering job titles at companies, and you could then see what the tech stacks are for those different companies. So if you find a software engineer at XYZ company, you can see, oh, they're using AWS and Java and React. So you can basically, so you find companies that use the technologies you have experience in. You could also call potentially, like, let's say you had experience with Snowflake. You could call the Snowflake sales rep and ask them if they know what companies are using Snowflake in town. And then, so that would be a good way to add some companies to your list, and things like that. There are a lot of lists online. There's best companies to work for. There's the Business Journal best companies to work for list. There's the Oregonian best companies to work for list. There's bigger companies like Forbes has a Inc. magazine. There's a lot of these lists of where they go and kind of rate companies and survey employees and create these lists of best companies. There's also lists of different things. Like, let's say you really love manufacturing, and so, or you really have experience in manufacturing. Well, then you can get a list of the top 100, largest manufacturing companies in Oregon, and you can go through that list and research further and find the companies that you're interested in. think about your passions. We already kind of mentioned that, but just really think about what you would want to do. What would be the most exciting thing for you to work on, and then try to add companies that do that to your list. So just a real big reminder, one of the big mistakes I see people make is they go, oh yeah, I'm doing this already. But the problem is they only have like 3 companies that they're targeting. And so this kind of comes back to that sales and marketing background that I mentioned. So this is a bit of a sales process, and you need to have numbers. So typically in sales, you're going to need 100 prospects to get 10 like sales appointments and make 1 or 2 sales. And so maybe 3 or 4 sales if you're better close ratios, but the idea being you need a large number because you're kind of playing the numbers here, and you're going to want to land out one of these. And if you only have 5 or 10 in your pipe, then that's not going to be enough to make it successful. Any questions about this, Maddie, that we have?
Nope, we're doing good so far.
Okay, so the next thing, right? So now we've got our list of companies. We've got a list of companies we really are excited about. Maybe we put them in order, the one we're most excited about to the bottom. And then what we do is we continue our research project. And we want to find managers at those companies that would be hiring someone like us. And so, this is research. So you go in and say, let's say that it's the bike manufacturing company is the one you really want. And so you just go to LinkedIn and you find that and search for the managers that work there, and search for the directors and the VPs and maybe the owner or the president of the company. And then you will just basically start assembling these names into lists. You want them to gather the name and the title and the contact information of the person. And so what you want to do is look for basically the person you would report to. So like if you're a data analytics person, the data analytics manager, or if you're a data analytics manager, you report to the data analytics director. And if you're the data analytics director, you look for the VP or the president that you report to. And so you basically want either the manager that you would have or a couple of levels up. So if I was looking for a data analytics just like a developer role, I would look at the manager. I would gather the name of the manager, the director, and the VP, for example, and then I'd have 3 contacts at that company. Any questions on this one? One of the nice things about this process is it's pretty straightforward, and you just follow this one. Okay, so the next step is to start reaching out to those people. You reach out to those people and that you've researched, and you just start reaching out to them. And what you want to do is ask them for their advice. So you really have to you got to get yourself into a serious psychological frame of mind that you are really seeking these people's advice, not asking them for jobs. And so what you'll do is just you need to really ask them for advice. Now you do want the advice of these people. If you're a software, a data analyst, a data analyst, right? And you do want to talk to software or data analyst managers. You do want to talk to them. You want to ask them questions about what do they like about their job, how would they recommend your career, go forward, or who do they think the best company is in town. There's just many things that you would have that you would want to ask someone. So if you're at a cocktail party or something and you met a data analytics manager and you could ask him any question about your career, then that's the kind of thing that you want to ask. And so you just basically, it's pretty easy. You're just going to reach out. You're going to call, email, or message these people on LinkedIn. And don't get scared. We're going to talk about this some more. This is kind of the scary part, which is reaching out to people. And but this is an example right here. Hi, my name's John. Hi, my name's John Boone, and I'm a software engineer with machine learning experience. I'm working to move my career into self-driving vehicles. I have some questions, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to share your experience and give me some advice. And so it's just that simple. You just send that LinkedIn invitation to the person, and then they'll accept it. And then what happens is that they'll accept it, but they'll never reply to you. So I've done this many, many times, like in my business and so forth. You send a message like this with a LinkedIn introduction kind of in your invite, and people will accept it, but they will rarely reply. So anyway, so you're going to need to, once the person accepts, you'll be able to pick up this conversation, essentially ask the same question again when they accept. So, Maddie, do we have any questions?
I think you kind of answered the question that came up, but one of the things that people were curious about was just like why they were making these lists of these managers. But I think we're really about to get into the meat of how to interact with them and use those lists.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, right. So, so just a reminder, going back to the big picture, the reason you're making the list is you're taking the randomness out of the job search. So we want to land our dream job at our dream company, and so that list of target companies was that's the dream companies. That's our list of dream companies that we really want to work for, and then of course the managers is the next step of the operations, because we're going to be reaching out to them as we are, for example, in this message here. So so regarding asking people's advice, so you just want to make sure that you have, like, what I basically say is you should always have just 3 intelligent questions you can ask these people's advice of. And these are just some examples, and it's definitely kind of specific. So if you're talking to the, let's say you're in machine learning, you're talking to the self-driving VP, then you're going to want to make the questions more about self-driving and how your career might align with that and things like that. So these aren't questions you create for everyone, and you could do them on the fly, and you would be able to, as you get better at this and you have practice, you can be kind of more on the fly. But you basically want to have 3 questions, and then this helps you get back as well. In the earlier slide where I said you really got to get yourself in the mind space that you're not asking people for jobs, you're asking them for advice. So that's why when I reach out, I recommend you kind of know what those questions are. What would you ask this person? And then so that way you really are intentionally just asking them for advice. And so these are examples questions that, just considering my background, what steps would you recommend for me to move my career into self-driving? That's obviously a question for a self-driving manager. Do you know what the best certifications are for self-driving? Do you know what the salaries are for self-driving machine learning engineers? Do you know any managers, in Portland that are hiring for these kind of roles? And do you think it's a good career move to go into self-driving with machine learning? These are all just intelligent questions that you guys would, I'm sure, we would want to learn, and from this expert that we just have this wonderful opportunity to be able to talk with. So obviously the big question, and I bet a lot of you guys are concerned at this point, because this sounds scary to do, and it's definitely kind of putting yourself outside of the comfort zone to do these things. But I guarantee you can do this, and that people are going to welcome your reach outs. They really, really will. The thing is, I've talked with many managers because I coach managers on their job hunts too. They'll come to me, it's a VP or a director or a manager, and they're looking for a new job. And I'll tell them exactly this whole process. And it gets to the point where they say the same thing that I feel you guys are probably feeling, is like, gosh, I don't know if I can do this. And I'll ask those managers, I'll say, if you were, let's say it's a software engineering manager, I'd say if a really great software engineer, like someone with some solid experience, maybe they're, they don't have to have a lot of experience, but maybe they're 1 year into software engineering, but they've got experience. Basically, they would, if a software engineer reached out to you asking you for your advice about their job hunt, or about a career in in your area, what would you do? And they all have the same answer. They would all reply and talk with the person, and they would help the person a little bit. Now, there's there's really nothing wrong with you doing this, and that there's no one's going to hate you. There's really nothing bad that can happen from you reaching out to people. They're not going to like yell at you, or they're not going to do any of those things. Certainly a percentage of them are going to like not get back to you at all. You know, these are busy people, and they, you know, their to-do list is too long, and they see your email, and maybe they even intend to get back to you, but they just forget, or it doesn't prioritize. So you're not going to hear back from everyone, but no one's going to be mad at you or anything like that. And you will hear back from people, and it will work. So I think the important thing is for you as well to think about, what would you do? What would you do if, let's say you're a senior software engineer now, and say a college grad was to send you an email and say, hey, I see you're a senior software engineer, and I was really hoping I could just ask you a few questions as I enter my software career, and I see you work at a SaaS company, and I've wanted to as well, and just wonder if I could ask you some questions about how you've done it, how you've done it. Would you ignore the person? Would you delete their email? What would you do? I would call them back. I would give them a few minutes and try to help that person. So basically, people like mentoring other people, and that's kind of the magic of this, because you're working with people, and then they start mentoring you. And so the person's giving you advice, and they want to help you, and then so you're essentially becoming a mentee of this person. It's one of the real big, powerful aspects of this. Another thing is that managers really like to hire people that reach out to them. If someone's reaching out, they're showing gumption, they're showing that they make things happen, they're showing that they're intelligent, and they're just kind of showing their personality. They're talking with the person, they've got intelligent questions, and an interesting discussion comes up. These kinds of things. Another important thing is they're not getting very many of these reach outs. They're just not. They're getting very few. They're getting in like less than 10 a year probably. And there might be some exceptions, of some manager in super high impacted, field or something like that. But there's really no one that's really doing this. And so you really can set yourself apart by this. So I want to stop on this slide here, because I imagine people might have some questions or concerns about this.
Well, I think you're about to kind of get into one of the questions, but somebody's curious if you have a lot of experience in the field and just want to know if that manager is hiring, would you still ask for their advice and about their company and their role?
I would, yeah. I wouldn't, yeah, we're gonna get, yeah, you'll see, we kind of are gonna get into this. But I would ask their advice. I would, because that person probably has some really good advice for you. And it's going to be a lot more effective method than you reaching out. What happens is, if you were to reach out, like just say, oh, hey, I wonder, I've got tons of experience in your field, and I wonder if you got any openings right now. Then what happens is that they're shutting down a lot of the processes that we want to happen here. So first of all, they're going to say, oh, well, why don't you send your resume to HR? Boom, you just killed yourself, because now you're just sending your resume in just like everyone else in the world. Secondly, if you can get the person in a conversation about their advice about things, then they're going to be, it's almost like an interview. You essentially landed yourself an interview, and you have a chance to ask questions and be intelligent, and have the person get to know you. You may be able to help them in some way. So you're building a relationship with the person. This reminds me, actually, so remember that job hunt that I did in college? So one of the people that I reached out to was a marketing manager at Santa Cruz Operations, which was a Unix software company in Santa Cruz, California. And so I called him and asked for his advice and so forth. And then sure enough, he had a job. We're going to talk about this, but if they have a job, they'll mention it. They'll bring it up to you. So sure enough, he did have a possible job for me. Ended up interviewing with him and everything, and that ended up being one of the 2 job offers that I got in my job search. And I chose the other job offer, but anyway, I've been a lifelong friend with him. So now we are like 35 years later, and I still know him. His name's Brian Fujimoto. I'll never forget him. And we've been in touch. He came to my wedding. and he's just been a friend. I was on the phone with a business call, like with a bunch of people, and there was a guy on the line. And I said, "Are you related to Brian Fujimoto?" Because he sounded just like him, and sure enough, he was. He was his brother. So anyway, so you're basically making lifelong friendships here, and so the difference between what the last question was, hey, should I just cut to the chase and see if they got a job? Is the difference between, yeah, just send me your resume. And the other thing is, you're developing a relationship that could be as strong as a lifelong friendship.
That's awesome, John. I think that kind of covers it for questions for now.
Okay, great. So let me go on then. So this is just a little technical step here, which is just, this is a sample of how to keep track of this system. And so this is just a Word document. You can do this in different ways. You can create yourself a little database or something. But the point is that as you do this, you're going to want to keep track of the contacts and what you've asked them and things like that. And like maybe you did just ask them if they have a job, then you'd want to make a note of that here. They may, or if you were to reach out with 3 questions, maybe you email them 3 questions, for example, that you want to discuss, then you would want to capture that in here. You just keep track of the notes like this. You guys can see this. Just for each person, I've got the dates and just kind of what happened and for each one. So that way, when I come back, because I'll know what happened with Joe Smith when I come back 2 weeks later. Because you are going to want to stay in touch with these people. This isn't like a once and done. We have a slide that comes about that, but I can touch on that. So you're working on a relationship with these contacts. So you're going to ask them if they'll give you some advice, and if they've answered some questions for you, and then you will have that engagement with them, and then you're going to want to keep that engagement going. So you'll be getting back to them. So if they advise you to read a certain book, then you'll go read the book, and then you'll get back to them and say, hey, I read that book. Thank you very much. It was very helpful. Or maybe they'll introduce you to another manager, a friend of theirs at another company, and then you'll want to, maybe go talk to that manager, and then you would get back to the original manager and thank him. Hey, thanks. I really appreciate you introducing me to, Joe over at XYZ company. And I would, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, by the way, maybe give them another update on other things as well. So you're staying in touch with people. Now, the magic is, this is the magic of this process, is that if they have a potential opening, they will bring it up. You don't need to bring it up at all. It'll be obvious. You're a software engineer and they like you, they're talking with you, they're answering your questions, they're mentoring you. If they have a software engineer role open, then they'll bring it up. They'll tell you about it. So you really never have to ask. And if they have a position and they don't bring it up, then you're probably not a good candidate for it for whatever reason. So it's probably why they wouldn't bring it up. But so what's really nice is you really never have to ask about the opening. And what's one of the powers is that they will bring it up. And oftentimes they'll say something like, "Oh yeah, well we are thinking about adding another person to the team." This is not, so now you're getting ahead of the job market essentially. So now you're teed up, as someone the manager's considering for, a position that's not even open yet. And so that they might just hire you instead of going through all the application processes and everything. So sorry, I jumped ahead on this one a bit here, but follow up and update people over time. So you're just going to stay in touch with them. You're going to, get back to them, as I mentioned, send them a thank you note. They spent 30 minutes, 45 minutes to answer your questions and help you with your career. You can send them maybe mail them a note if you can, or send them an email. You follow up with the advice. We've talked about this. Or you can just give them an update. Say, hey, I just wanted to give you an update. My research is really going well. I've been learning more and more about machine learning and self-driving companies. And I talked with this manager over here, and just give them an update. And they're just you create a kind of, because that relationship again. So what happens is that every time you interact with them, so like let's say a month went by, and then you were to get back to them and say, hey, I just want to give you an update. I did talk with Joe over that you recommended. Thanks very much. So each time you do that touch point, they're going to ask themselves, hey, do I have a position for this person? And if they do, they'll bring it up. So again, you don't have to bring it up, but obviously, they need to hire a software engineer and they know you're a great software engineer. They're going to mention it to you. And so as you, over time, positions open and things change, and you're going to be right there on top of mind if you stay there, but you've got to stay there. A really important point is try to help that person who's helping you. What can you do for them? Maybe you've got maybe you can help them find a new job, or maybe your last company that you used to work for might be looking to hire someone like that person, or maybe you could endorse them for some skills on LinkedIn, or maybe you can introduce them to someone maybe on the business side. Say, hey, I know you guys sell your software to insurance brokers. Would you like me to introduce you to my insurance broker? They might be interested. And so you're saying, you're trying to help them. So think about what you can do to help them, and you want to be a valuable part of their network too. Any questions, Maddie?
No, we are doing pretty good.
Good. So there's the magic of this is that there's just so many different ways you can land a job through this. You can, the person you talk to could give you referrals to other managers at other companies. They could suggest a company that you add to your target list, then you end up finding a job there as well, and then you get a job there. They could suggest a conference that you could go to. They might give you advice on a book to read, and you read the book, and then you go on another interview that's totally unrelated, and you might be able to bring up the book and what you learned in the book. And so it's like this cycle of positive things that you're starting. So you might learn something that comes in really handy on an interview, and then of course, like I mentioned with Brian Fujimoto, you can set up a lifelong friendship with the person, and you could help them throughout their career, and they can help you. It's a long-term thing. It's all these investments are going to be really valuable for you over time. Yeah, so just what will happen is if they want to offer you a job, they'll just start talking about it. Like, oh yeah, we have a position open, and they'll probably say, well, why don't you send me your resume, and we'll see what can happen. And then so you just follow the process. They'll kind of drag you through the process. You might be able to expedite it. Once they start talking about it, then you could expedite things. What I mean by that is, like, if they don't ask for your resume, maybe you say, oh, well, should I send you my resume? Or if you send them the resume, then you'd follow up in like a week and say, hey, I haven't heard from you, but I wonder if we could schedule an interview. So you just want to kind of keep those things alive. Just follow the process and kind of expedite the process as well if you can. This is funny. This meme here is that you're hired because you're there. You just happen to be standing right in front of the manager when they want to hire somebody, and they like you. They'll hire you. It works. Common mistakes people make is too few companies in your pipeline. You got to make sure you have a bunch of companies, because like that sales thing, you got to make sure you've got a large number. Being afraid that you're bothering people, it's just not going to happen. Don't worry about it. I can't imagine anybody thinking that you asking their advice is a problem. So not staying in touch over time. This isn't a once and done thing. You've got to keep it up and keep going. And another mistake is thinking that the advice is not worthwhile. I've noticed this with college kids when I talk to them about this, is they can't see that the advice is so valuable for them, that it's worth doing this just for the advice, and that they want a shortcut to like asking for jobs, getting the job. They just want to get their resume in. So the advice is worthwhile, and just for the advice alone makes it worth doing this. Another one I hear all the time is, I'm already doing this. And anybody that's already doing this, I will be very surprised if they're doing a really thorough job of this process. And there's always more that can be done. But if you're thinking, oh, I'm already doing this, I already knew about all this, I would suggest you really think hard about that and try to implement this if you really want, if you can. And of course, not staying in touch with your newly built network once you land a job. So all those people that helped you, you want to stay in touch with those people. Those are now your friends. They're your contacts. They're your industry contacts. And you can call them and ask them for advice on a project you're working on, and they'll maybe ask you as well. So these are lifelong, career-long contacts that you can have and that can help you in your career. So someone asked this question, okay, and there is a possible modification. If this whole thing sounds really crazy to you and you have no interest and you just don't want to ask people's advice, you can do all of this process and shortcut with this, which is just to say you're looking for a job. So it's like, you're a software engineer, you're a senior software engineer, and there's a director of software engineering. You can just do all these things we've talked about and then just cut right to the chase, like I do in this email. This would be like an email or LinkedIn message. It says, hi, I'm John Boone. I'm a senior software engineer, and I understand you guys, use the technology that I'm experienced in, and I've got 7 years experience with that technology, and I wonder if we could chat on the phone about possibilities of working, of me joining your team. So that's also a good method to do, and you might want to do that a little bit as well, or mix these up a little bit. But I almost kind of hesitate to even tell you about this one because I think the other one is so much more effective. But this is also a possible way to go. And if you really don't like the other advice thing, this could be a good way to go. And I wanted to share this with you. So yes, that brings us to the ends of the slides. These are basically resources that are not exactly pertinent to this presentation, except that they're about resumes and interviewing and coding interviewing and things like that. So we thought that would be helpful for you guys. At this point, I'd like to go ahead and make sure that answer any other questions that people have.
Awesome, John. That was great. A couple of questions have come up. One is, do you have any other additional templates or ideas for the initial high introduction message?
Yeah. Maddie, can you put up the last slide, the connect slide? Let's see. So, yeah, let's see. I think, because my suggestion would just be to be genuine and ask for their advice, basically. So different ones. Like so, I had an example of a machine learning engineer that wanted to get into self-driving, and so that was the reason. You could be like, there's a lot of that. You kind of think about the advice questions that you have are centered around the person. So if the person works like in sporting goods apparel, and then it would be good to say, I was really hoping to ask your advice about, the sporting goods industry. I know that you have experience in sporting goods, apparel, and I'm really interested in those kinds of things. And I am wondering, if I could ask you some advice about how I could, you just have this, you got to think about how you can ask, what questions you can ask. So ask, I wondered how you could give me some advice about the companies in town that, that do sporting goods. And if I'm kind of grasping here at straws, but you just need to be short in your message and just ask for their advice and just be as genuine as you can and just make it relevant to them and their process. And it's like each one is essentially custom. And if you look at that one that I had, if you just write something similar to that, or just kind of try to make it like that, it'll be good. Just be genuine about it.
Do you have any like common mistakes for that first message about what absolutely you should not say, or any stories of things that you've been like, that's not how you do it?
I would not like go like really ego-ish into it, so like, hey, I'm the best software engineer in Portland, and I was just hoping to ask your questions about how I could get to the top, at your company, that's one. So I would definitely kind of come from a point of like, just humility, just asking for their advice, get a good term actually that I use is like tap into your the expertise. That's a quote that's kind of answer to the last person's question is another thing you could say. I'm like really interested in tapping into your expertise about machine learning, and I think and hoping that you could give me some career advice about that. Bad things to say. I would say, asking for the job, would fall into that category. So it'd be a common mistake would be to jump to asking for the job and essentially defeating the process. It is possible to shortcut things, like if someone was to call me, tomorrow and say, hey, I'm an experienced account manager in IT staffing, and I've been doing this for 5 years, and I was wondering if you had any positions open. That would work. It would work. I would want to talk to that person. But there's a lot of times where it doesn't. I might send them over to HR or something like that if I was, at a different manager, different company or something. But other than that, there's really not a lot you can do wrong if you just be friendly and ask sincerely for their, just a little bit of their time and advice. You can just ask them for like a little bit of time. You can kind of specify the amount of time could be something, and maybe a mistake would say, oh, I just need 5 minutes. I think that would be a mistake to ask for only 5 minutes, because you're really going to, it's going to be longer than that. It's going to be 15 minutes, probably 15 to 30 minutes, and would be a good amounts of time maybe to ask for. But there's really not a lot that can go wrong. No one's going to be mad at you. There's really nothing. Just imagine if someone emailed you and said, hey, I noticed you've got experience in, project management and, at manufacturing companies. And I was just really hoping to ask your advice. I want to be a project manager at manufacturing companies also. And I just wanted to ask your advice about the career and so forth. And I wonder if I could just talk to you on the phone or on video conference for 15 to 30 minutes. And you would do it? I would. Maddie would probably.
I would definitely. So a question came up. What if you haven't stayed in touch in the past? How would you remedy that situation?
Yeah, just go ahead and long lost friend it. They'll remember you. Say, you might remind them who you are. I do that sometimes. I'll say, hey, you remember me? We met at a conference, or you're just remind them the scenario from what it was, and say, yeah, it's been. I can't believe how much time has passed. I just wanted to reach out again and say hi. I would just kind of say that. I would say, hey, yeah, gosh, I can't believe how much time's passed, and boy, time flies, but I really would like to connect with you again. Or if you have 15 minutes, we can catch up on the phone.
That also kind of answers another question that came up about what tips do you have for starting the update conversations with your new social network connections?
Yeah, well, a really timely tip right now is just the COVID. It's really interesting. Just, hey, how's it going? How are things going with COVID right now for you? And I haven't talked to you in a long time. I was wondering how you're doing with COVID and what you've been up to, and and whether you have advice question or whether it's just more of a networking or not. But if you wanted to ask them advice, you could throw that on there as well, or maybe you just have the catch up. So you could definitely, people are very responsive to the COVID catch up message. I can tell you, because from a sales perspective, the sales person, that these managers out there and so forth are really interested in talking about what they're doing with COVID, and they're happy that you're interested in. But I would just, the point is just to do it. Is there not, again, like, what if somebody you worked with 7 years ago, you guys were on the same team, you were both software quality engineers on the same team, and you never heard from that person, they left the company, and you never heard from them for 7 years. And then all of a sudden they send you a message, go, hey, John, I wonder, it's been a long time since we talked, but I just wanted to touch base and see how you're doing. And I'm in between jobs right now, and I was just wondering if we could just catch up on the phone. I'd be interested to see, how you're doing with COVID and everything, and do you have 15 to 30 minutes to catch up sometime on video conference? And I'm sure they'll want to talk with you. People like to talk to people. They'll be happy to hear from you. They really will.
Nice. Well, I don't have any more questions in the chat to cover, and we're approaching 1 o'clock. If we can wrap it up, and just a reminder.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. Really happy you could come. We'll be getting you out some materials after this. I think Maddie will be sending you guys a link of this recorded, and you'll actually have the slides as well, so you can refer back to those. We really, appreciate you coming, and hope that you guys can maybe come. We'll probably do this series again sometime soon, and you can come if you missed section 1 and 2. You could come to those next time. Also, if you could do the survey, it would be really awesome. So especially on this is kind of this topic I'd be really interested to hear what you guys think about this topic, and just how the presentation went in general as well, because we'd like to make this as good as possible for people in the future. So thank you. Thanks for coming. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.